It's MacLore 1997, y'all. Actual effects.
Yeah,
that's
they're
just
coming.
placeholder footage for the actual effects, which are definitely coming.
Absolutely. By the time you watch this,
Probably soon.
we'll be on. So
Yeah, we're good to
no
go.
worries.
Hey, today we're talking about
House rules.
Yes.
Castle Mac house rules.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you have asked, and other people seem to have questions that some of these might actually be able to help with. They've definitely helped us since we implemented them.
Yeah. Where do you want to start? We've got a couple that we'll cover, but not many. We tend to be pretty thoughtful about our house rules. We don't, I think we respect rules as written. We want to play the game close to the way it's intended.
Yeah.
I know that, right, the paradigm is, hey, it's your game. Do whatever you want at your table. And I respect and love that, and I think we do. But also, you can have some unforeseen
We've
consequences when
also
you start
put
monkeying with
limits
the
on,
rules.
typically when we change something to benefit, there is a limit to it.
Right,
So it's almost a limited amount. And I think the two things we'll talk about first are potions and short rests.
Yeah. Why don't you take it away? Which one do you want to start with?
Short rest, because that's probably maybe
Okay.
the largest
Yeah,
change.
yeah.
So short rest are, with us, about 3 to 5 minutes. It's enough time
Yes.
to catch your breath, to bandage yourself, but we limit them to 2 per long rest.
Right.
So there's not, I'm going to take another short rest, going to take another short rest.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, it's great. We were sort of stressed out by some of the short rest based classes, right? Fighters, warlocks, they sort of have this, there's almost this push to, after every fight, be like, hey, can we take a short rest? But, short rests were an hour. So a dungeon that might take 30 minutes of in-game time, throw in 2 rests, it's only 2.5 hours to clear this small dungeon. It just it didn't jive, right? It just didn't feel right.
And there's levels where it's difficult for every time to try to figure out how narratively an hour would take place.
Yeah.
Whereas, so,
Right.
and given, I think those questions are still things you have to work out, and it's very easily, you can still make them like, no, y'all can't. You're still pressed. I still think the same mechanic can work.
Right. Yeah, it 100% can. And I think by limiting it to 2, it's now a finite resource that the party has to essentially call upon when they're ready.
Yeah.
You sort of have, it's now a bit of a gamble.
The hit dice are still used.
Right.
Everything else is still used up. So
Right.
it's not...
Because hypothetically, you could just short rest your way after every room. I mean, yeah, it might take you 3 days to clear a dungeon that's 20 rooms or something, but there's nothing to stop you from short resting. And in some ways, that's the way old school D&D was, right? We go in, we poke around. Okay, all right, let's go back out, camp at the entrance, but whatever. So it's worked for us. I think narratively, it's
We like it.
really cool.
It's something if you want to try. The other is potions. So potions we allow to you can drink them on a bonus action. If you
Right.
want to kind of feed them to somebody else who may be down, that's still an action
Right.
to try to kind of make it in and bring them back up.
Yep.
However, the same one have to choose to drink a healing potion or an action. I mean, it's a tough choice. Again, what we've done though is you can't buy 15
Yeah.
healing potions.
Yeah, we make them pretty limited. Players can't show up and buy a bag full.
No.
Typically, narratively, there's always a sort of governor on it. Typically, characters can walk around with 2 going into a dungeon. If they find more and conserve them, great, that's
Yep.
totally fine. But rarely are we letting anyone walk into a dungeon, spending every bonus action on a healing potion. And we wouldn't have that limit, I think, if they were an action necessarily, because you're giving up a whole action.
Agreed.
Both of those rules we've been using for months now, probably 6 months.
If not
the
more.
potions even longer. The potions we've
longer.
been doing that for like 2 years, and they've worked. It's worked spectacularly. I really, really like it.
It's only been beneficial changes. So
Yeah.
I haven't had any complaints. It certainly hasn't broken anything that we've played or any of the larger mechanics.
No, they really haven't. Of course, our other house rule that you see all the time is our player-given inspiration. That, in many ways, I introduced that because I, as a DM, am just bad about remembering. I kind of get wrapped up when someone's role-playing. I'm like, I'm loving this. And I just don't even often think, oh, I should reward that.
Yeah.
So now the players can reward each other. It's not always used appropriately. It can be like, oh, you're about to fight? Okay, well, I'm going to come up with a quick reason to give this.
It's used strategically a lot, but that's not to say there are times when it is a chance
Yes.
for... And it's a nice break where when somebody does give it to somebody else, typically the rest of the group be like, I also loved that. So it's a way for you to honestly
Right.
help each other out and reward each other for things that you genuinely think.
Yeah, and on the topic of inspiration, another house rule of ours is we just let it be spent after the fact to re-roll a die. By the rules, you're supposed to spend it ahead to get advantage on something, which is fine, but it just works really well, I think, rolling, kind of a re-roll after the fact. I don't know. I think that works the best.
Oh, are you filming?
Yeah.
Oh.
100%. It's really a professional approach, too. Like, this is
obviously...
I mean, you guys saw the special effects at the beginning that we're
yeah,
adding in. So.
Clearly. We also... It's not actually a spoken part of the rule. We don't allow multiple inspiration rolls to be used quite frequently.
Yeah.
I think we typically only have, 2.
What do you mean?
Well, you can't... I mean, say you have...
because our divine inspiration...
But you can't be like, I'm going to roll that a 5th time. I'm going to roll that a 6th time.
Right.
There is kind of a limit at, 2 re-rolls, unless you have maybe luck or something where you could continue to use that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, given that it's a re-roll, it's kind of well, that was...
Yeah,
that was that.
It. That was your second shot.
So again, it's another way that we kind of limit it either way.
And again, that's worked really well. That's been fun. It's not always used in a manner that you might, but whatever.
But
it's
that's
fun.
okay too.
Yeah, who cares?
You want your friends to survive and you want to do well. And as a DM, we typically are planning on somebody using an inspiration reroll.
Right.
So I have probably built in the fact that if I've done it well, you're going to need to use them.
And for all these things, we're like, yeah, cool. You guys get divine rerolls or whatever. I'm going to crank up the difficulty a little bit. So, we've got levers that we can pull to balance it out. The only other house rule that's coming to mind right now is the way I treat mounted combat, which is...
I'll let you explain that.
Yeah,
it's
mounted combat rules as written is pretty... It's kind of all over the place.
It's weird.
And there was an article, or actually there was a video, I think that Jeremy Crawford did, and I frankly just don't like the way it worked out. The way it's supposed to work is intelligent mounts are supposed to have their own initiative, but that just gets to be kind of a pain, and it can be painful especially for characters like Wayland in our Strahd game, who is this, he's trained all his life to be a mounted, cavalryman, and he's got this horse that's trained, and it felt weird to have the horse be intelligent, so it acts on its own, or completely unintelligent, so it doesn't. So really, here's the way we do it. If you are mounted, your horse will act on your initiative, but you must declare whether it acts before you or after you, and it has to complete its entire turn before you do. So that means your horse can't ride up, you make an attack, and then your horse ride off. Now, there are ways around that, which we can talk about in a second.
It also stays. Your decision in the beginning of that choice is the remainder of that combat.
Right, you don't get to switch it up. Every time you roll initiative, you make that decision then and there and stick with it. So the only other change I have is I do make the distinction between an intelligent and an unintelligent mount, except it's more like a trained mount and an untrained mount. But intelligent, I think, would functionally be the same thing. So a trained or intelligent mount, the only difference is it can take the attack action. So on its turn, it could move up and attack, and now it's your turn mounted. And I did this just because, again, the initiative order being what it is, if you're riding on an intelligent mount, just weird stuff can happen that don't feel real, right? It kind of hurts the verisimilitude of it. And so now, let's say hypothetically, I'm a knight, I've got a lance, and I want to ride my horse past the enemy and attack the enemy as I ride past. Okay? Here's one way you might do that. My horse is going to go after me. On my turn, I am going to hold my action to attack as soon as I'm adjacent to this guy. Now my horse on its turn moves up, gets adjacent. I now get to make my attack.
It has triggered the action.
It's triggered my held action, and now the horse rides off. It sounds complicated, but I think it's much less complicated than it is if you play it rules as written. And it's worked swimmingly for us we did that probably 18 months ago. So, I think that's it. Any other house rules that we can think of?
Not that I can think of, no.
All right, great. We're going to go ahead and roll the credits here. There's Andrew gets credited right there, as you can see. We'll see you next time on Mac Lore 1997, y'all.